Hello. History is a strange thing. It seems to us like a straight line, a ladder leading upward. First, we were apes, then we picked up a stick, then a stone, then invented the wheel, then built pyramids. And here we are now with iPhones and the internet. Progress, evolution, constant movement from simple to complex. That's what we were taught in school. That's what's written in all the history textbooks. But what if that line is a lie? What if the ladder is broken? What if we're not the pinnacle of evolution, but a civilization with a severe case of amnesia, wandering through the ruins of something far greater? Today, we're heading to a place that shouldn't exist. Seriously, from the perspective of official academic science, this site simply can't be. Its existence violates all the laws of societal development that we've considered unshakable for the last 200 years. Welcome to Turkey, southeastern Anatolia, 15 kilometers from the city of Sanliurfa. Here, amid sun-scorched fields, stands an unremarkable hill. Local residents have called it Göbekli Tepe for centuries, which translates to Potbelly Hill. They plowed the land on it, found strange stones that got in the way of the plow, and just dragged them aside. No one paid attention until 1994, when German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt arrived. He looked down at his feet and realized he was standing on the roof of the world. He started digging, and what he uncovered made historians around the globe choke on their morning coffee. Because Göbekli Tepe isn't just ruins. It's ground zero for history. Let's immediately outline the scale of the problem. I asked an artificial intelligence to visualize a timeline so we could physically feel this abyss of time. I gave it the task: place the Pyramid of Khufu, Stonehenge, and Göbekli Tepe on a timeline and calculate the distances between them. Look at what comes out. We live now. The Great Pyramid at Giza was built about 4,500 years ago. For us, that's incredible antiquity. Stonehenge in England is around the same time, maybe a bit earlier, 5,000 years ago. And now, hold on. Göbekli Tepe was built about 12,000 years ago. Think about that. More time passed between the construction of Göbekli Tepe and the building of the pyramids than between the pyramids and us today. When the Egyptians were laying the first blocks of their tombs, Göbekli Tepe was already so ancient that it had been forgotten and lost. This is unbelievably deep antiquity, the end of the last ice age. And here's where the conflict begins. That inconvenient moment when reality slaps theory in the face. I loaded data from 10th grade history and anthropology textbooks into the AI. The query was simple: describe human society in the 10th millennium BCE, and it produced the standard picture. This is the Epipaleolithic, the Stone Age. People live in small nomadic groups of 20 to 30 individuals. They are hunter-gatherers. They have no permanent homes. They sleep in huts or caves. They wake up, grab a spear with a flint tip, and go chasing after gazelles to avoid starving. In the evening, they eat that gazelle and go to sleep. They have no writing, no mathematics, no complex religion. And most importantly, they have no agriculture. They don't know how to grow wheat. They don't know how to domesticate animals, except maybe wolves. They have no food surpluses, which means no free time. Their entire life is a struggle for survival. That's what science tells us. And now, look at the screen. Here's Göbekli Tepe. This isn't a hut, and it isn't a campfire. This is a gigantic megalithic complex. Huge stone circles up to 30 meters in diameter. In the center, massive T-shaped pillars. Some reach heights of 5.5 meters, weights up to 20 tons. That's like 3 adult African elephants stacked on top of each other. And these stones aren't just placed. They're perfectly processed. Moreover, they're covered in intricate carvings. Foxes, boars, cranes, scorpions, snakes, spiders. These aren't primitive charcoal cave drawings like stick, little cucumber. These are 3D bas-reliefs. To create something like this, you don't just scratch a drawing. You have to remove a layer of stone around the figure to make it protrude. This requires skill, tools, and an enormous amount of time. I asked the AI if it was possible to create such a complex using Paleolithic technologies. The system's answer was evasive but honest. Technically possible, but organizationally extremely unlikely. Why? Because it breaks the cause and effect chain. Textbooks say, first, people invent agriculture, food surpluses appear, people stop nomading and build cities, an elite emerges, priests, administrators. And only then, when society has resources and technologies, do they start building temples and monuments. First bread, then cathedrals. Göbekli Tepe flips this pyramid upside down. Here, there are no traces of residential houses, no traces of large settlements around. At least, at that time, there are no granaries for grain. It turns out that these savages first built a cathedral, a huge, incredibly complex cathedral, and only then, to maintain this construction, did they have to invent agriculture. By the way, this isn't just a pretty phrase. I checked genetic data. The closest wild ancestor of modern cultivated wheat grows right here, on the slopes of Mount Karakodag, just 30 kilometers from Göbekli Tepe. Coincidence? Or is this exactly where, 12,000 years ago, someone gave a push to our civilization? But let's return to the stones themselves. Skeptics say, so what? A bunch of guys got together, strained, and set up a stone. What's the big deal? I thought that too until I asked the AI to compare the construction technology of Stonehenge and Göbekli Tepe. Look, Stonehenge is rough blocks, essentially just big boulders that were chipped to make them rectangular. Göbekli Tepe is fine work. The pillars have perfect proportions. Many of them are stylized as human figures. The T-shaped top is a head in profile. On the sides of the pillars, arms with long fingers are carved, converging on the belly over a belt. On the belt hangs a loincloth made of fox skin. These statues have no faces. Who are they? Gods, ancestors, or the builders themselves? But the most astonishing thing is the floor. In some enclosures, the floor is made of terrazzo. This is polished concrete, a mixture of burnt lime and rubble, buffed to a shine. In ancient Rome, they were proud of this technology, but here in Turkey, this technique was used 8,000 years before Rome, in an era when, remember, official science allows us only flint scrapers and mammoth hides. I stand before these pillars, virtually through a 3D reconstruction, and feel uneasy. It's like digging up a Neanderthal site and finding Swiss watches there. Even if stone, even if primitive, but watches with a working mechanism. This means we don't understand something. We've lost a huge piece of the puzzle. Who taught these hunters to work with stone? How did they organize the logistics? And most importantly, why? Official history says this was a ritual center, a gathering place for tribes. A convenient explanation. When archaeologists don't know what something is, they say, ritual. But the AI, free from academic biases, points to another aspect, the aspect of resources. Building such a structure with a small group of enthusiasts is impossible. It requires hundreds, maybe thousands of working hands. And those workers need to be fed every day for years. In a world without supermarkets and grain stores, this is a task on the level of a moon landing. In the next chapter, we'll calculate. We'll take a calculator, load the high freeze. The temperature dropped by 10 to 15 degrees. This was a catastrophe of biblical proportions. The giant glaciers of North America began to melt, then froze again. Ocean levels fluctuated. It was precisely at this moment that the megafauna disappeared. Mammoths, saber-toothed tigers, giant sloths, all of them went extinct in this narrow time frame. But what caused this cold? For a long time, scientists argued, but in recent years, the impact hypothesis is gaining weight, a comet strike or a swarm of comet fragments. Geologists find thin layers of platinum and nanodiamonds in rocks from that time across North America and Europe. These are traces of a cosmic impact. And now, back to the Vulture Stone. 10,950 BCE. This is the date of the impact. And after analyzing the symbolism, the AI gave an interpretation that seems the most logical of all to me. Stela 43 isn't a grave. It's a memorial. It's a monument to a lost world. The headless person at the bottom is a symbol of mass death, a symbol of humanity that lost its head, lost everything. The circle on the vulture's wing isn't the sun. It's the son of death, a bolide, a comet. The ancient people who survived this hell built Göbekli Tepe not just to pray. They built it to remember. Imagine their psychology. They saw the sky fall to earth. They saw forests burn. They saw water rise and wash away all life. They survived. And the first thing they did when the dust settled was start building a stone book. They encoded in stone the position of the stars at the moment of the catastrophe. Why? Maybe it's a warning? People of the future, watch the sky. This could happen again. Or it's a time capsule, an attempt to preserve knowledge about when exactly the end of the world occurred. I asked the AI what the probability is of a random coincidence between the animal placements on the stela and the constellations on that specific date. The machine's answer, less than 2%. Too precise, too many details match. This means the builders of Göbekli Tepe weren't just stonemasons. They were astronomers. They observed the sky for centuries. They knew precession cycles. They could record data. This is a level of knowledge that doesn't fit with a loincloth and a digging stick. This is the level of civilization. A civilization wiped out by a comet, whose remnants came to this hill to leave us a final message. But if this message is so important, if this is a temple of memory and warning, then why, after half a millennium, did they do something completely insane with it? Why did they take shovels and deliberately, carefully, layer by layer, bury this gigantic complex under the ground? They didn't destroy it. They hid it. Why hide the most important thing you have? In the final chapter, we'll try to uncover the motive for this great burial and understand why we, with you, are a civilization with amnesia. And here we are at the finale, the strangest, most illogical, and most frightening part of this story. We've admired how they built this complex. We've debated how they dragged 20-ton blocks. We've deciphered star maps. But the real detective story begins not when Göbekli Tepe was built, but when they decided to close it. Around the 8th millennium BCE, after 1.5 or 2,000 years of use, people did something insane. They didn't destroy the temple. They didn't burn it. They took baskets and started carrying earth. They buried Göbekli Tepe carefully, methodically, layer by layer. This wasn't a landslide. It wasn't a flood. Archaeologists clearly see the structure of the mound. It's pure limestone rubble mixed with animal bones and tool fragments. This was garbage that was specially collected and brought here to bury the sanctuary. I asked the AI to assess the scale of this liquidation operation. AI, calculate the volume of soil needed to completely hide the main rings of the complex under the ground and the labor costs for this work. The numbers are staggering. To bury a hill of that size, it took moving tens of thousands of cubic meters of rock. The AI delivered the verdict. The labor intensity of the conservation process is comparable to the labor intensity of construction. Think about it. Building a cathedral is a feat, but spending just as much effort and time to simply bury it back. Why? What's the point? Let's open our basket of versions and see what's there. Version A, fear and religion. Imagine living in a world that's slowly dying. After the comet fall, the climate became unstable. Hunting gets worse. The old gods no longer help. Perhaps a new generation of priests declared this place cursed. This place brought us trouble. The gods are angry. We must close the gates. They buried the temple like burying a radioactive reactor in a sarcophagus, with fear and trembling, so that evil doesn't escape. This explains why they didn't dismantle the stones for building materials but precisely hid them. Version B, time capsule. This version appeals to me much more. It sounds grown up. Imagine you're the keeper of knowledge from an ancient, advanced civilization. You see your people degrading, technologies being forgotten, masters dying without leaving apprentices. Dark ages are coming. Around you, savages are running who no longer understand star maps. You realize that if you leave the temple open, it will be destroyed, dismantled for fences, vandals will chip off the bas-reliefs, and you make a heavy decision. Conserve it, hide the library until better times, bury it in sand so deep that no one finds it by accident, so that in thousands of years, when humanity gets smarter again, they dig it up and read the message. In essence, Göbekli Tepe is like our seed vault on Svalbard, to be opened in case of apocalypse. And if that's the case, the plan worked. The complex stood underground for 10,000 years, perfectly preserved. Not a single vandal touched these stelae. Neither rain nor wind erased the drawings. We found it. We opened the capsule. But did we understand the message? I look at this whole story through the prism of data processed by the AI. and I come to a conclusion that changes the perception of history. We're used to thinking that civilization is a linear process, that we get smarter with each century. But Göbekli Tepe proves that progress can go backward. 12,000 years ago, people could build megaliths, knew astronomy, and possibly had a complex social structure. And then silence. A gap of 6,000 years. Humanity forgot everything. We picked up sticks and stones again. We lost our memory. We are a civilization with amnesia. We are like a person who woke up in a wrecked car on the roadside, doesn't remember who he is, and thinks he was just born. But in reality, behind him is a long and tragic life. Göbekli Tepe is evidence that we are not the first and, perhaps, not the last. This sobers us up. We pride ourselves on our skyscrapers, the internet, and flights to Mars. But history shows how fragile it all is. One strike from space, one sharp climate change, and in 1,000 years, our descendants will look at the remains of concrete boxes with surprise and wonder how the savages of the 21st century could have built this. And then maybe they too will decide to bury it. What do you think about this? Was it a time capsule or a temple of fear? And do you believe that before us, there existed an advanced civilization wiped out by a catastrophe? Write your version in the comments. I read everything. If you like that we ask such questions and use science, not mysticism, to answer them, subscribe to the channel. Here we seek the truth no matter how inconvenient it may be. My name is Thinker. And remember, history isn't what's written in the textbook. History is what we haven't yet managed to unearth.